Hey everybody, it's Neil here from Post to Post. Thanks for joining me today. Hope you guys are having a great day. I found this graphic a couple of months ago in my Discord, which is actually no longer live or to the public, and I had to save it because I wanted to make a video about it, and then it kind of got lost in my files, and then I just found it recently. So I want to bring it up and I want to go through it. And someone created, actually, there's a copyright on it. It's at NHL Breakers. I'm assuming maybe that's a Twitter handle or something. But they've come up with this giant graphic of every single team that's made it to the playoffs since 2000, and then they have their record on there. It's something that, some teams I would kind of expect their record to be whatever, but then I look at this graphic, which is actually their record, I'm like, oh wow, that's a little surprising. So I figured I'd make a video about it, not a long video, just going to throw this up on the screen here for you in a couple of seconds, and we can go through it real quickly, and I'll say a couple of things. So let's bring it up. And I don't know if I'll necessarily, I guess I will go in order, but I just wanted to mention one thing first before I do. There are obviously some shockers on this list, and it's going to be fun to talk about them, but I know that these are just numbers, but for me, myself personally, when I look at some of these teams and some of the numbers, it's more than that. I can make a correlation to like an experience or a memory. For example, Florida, terrible record, by the way. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but because there's only 3, I can kind of like, I think back to experiencing some of them. The one that happened last year against Tampa, amazing series. The one that happened, 4 or 5 years ago against the Islanders, that was also an amazing series. And Columbus, as 1-6. Well, I know where that number 1 came from. It was from that Tampa Bay win, that crazy sweep that happened a couple of years ago. One of the most amazing upsets in professional sports, not just hockey. So some of these numbers are just numbers, but some of these numbers remind me of an experience or like a really good memory or like a really fun memory because I watched that series and I really enjoyed it. So I'm not sure if anyone kind of relates to that, but that's how I look at this graphic in a way. So let's kind of go through these team by team really quickly and I'll give some thoughts. So Anaheim 15-11, pretty decent. I know some of the younger generation don't really remember Anaheim being that good of a team because, in the last 3 years, they haven't really done that much. But prior to that, Anaheim was so consistent in making the playoffs and having really powerful and good series. I remember them just, dominating certain teams. So that record actually seems accurate to me. And moving on to, Arizona. That is 21 years and you've only made it 6 times. That is so bad. It's a wonder, look at Florida. They've only made 3 times in 21 years. Like that is so bad. It's no surprise that the fan base for Arizona and for Florida are lower than every other team in the NHL. That just it makes sense. There's such a correlation there. 2-4, not great. Boston 16-14. This one actually surprised me a lot. I did not think that Boston had this many losses. I guess that may have been in the first half of the decade versus the last half of the the 2010 to 2020 or 2021. So 16-14, pretty average record. But when I think about Boston, I think about them being a pretty dominant team in the playoffs. This next one surprised me. Buffalo 5-5. I don't even remember Buffalo making the playoffs, let alone going 5-5. So that record is actually pretty impressive to me. Calgary 4-9. This one doesn't surprise me too much. I remember them making the playoffs here and there, but not really doing a whole lot. So that seems right. Carolina 13-6. I would not have expected them to be 13-6. Maybe like 13-12 or like 9-9 or 10-10, something average. But 13-6 is really, really impressive. They had a lot of really good years, and then they kind of didn't make the playoffs for a bit, and then they got really good again, and then had a lot of really good years. So, when I actually think about it, it does make a little bit of sense. Chicago, 16-8, super impressive, really, really amazing, and obviously they won 3 cups, so that's a big part of that statistic there. So good job for Chicago. Colorado, 12-11, so I would say fairly average, but obviously based on the numbers, they make the playoffs a lot. And Columbus, we already talked about this one, 1-6, an absolutely egregious record, just terrible. So they need to improve that. Dallas 9-10. This seems about average to me. I kind of think about Dallas kind of being the definition of average. Some years they make it, some years they don't. Some years they make it and win. Some years they make it and don't win a series. So that totally makes sense to me. Detroit 17-3. So leading up to 2017, I believe, Detroit had made the playoffs every single year for like the past 25 years, since 1994 or 1995 rather, or something like that. But then they missed the playoffs that 1 year, and it was a big deal, and then they really haven't made the playoffs since. So 17-13, that's 30 if you add those up. And 17-13, it's close to average, but still a positive record. So that one totally makes sense to me. Edmonton 4-5. surprising. Actually, it's so low. I remember them not making the playoffs forever there for a long period of a long stretch, and then they made it. And then I think they ran into Anaheim, and Anaheim, that was an amazing series, by the way. And then Anaheim won, and it was controversial and whatnot. But yeah, I guess that number seems correct. I'm surprised they have that many wins, though. No offense to Edmonton. Florida, we already talked about it. 0-3. They have not won a playoff series since 2000. They've only made the playoffs 3 times. That's so unacceptable. It's literally just terrible. It is the worst. It's highlighted in red here. They've done that as the worst record so far, or in this list rather. So just not great. Not surprised that their fan base is so small. It's really great to see that their team is actually having some life right now. Okay, LA, 11-7. This one's not surprising either, because the years that they made the playoffs and did really well, they won a cup, and the years that they didn't make the playoffs, or the years that they did make the playoffs and not do so great, they still kind of went far. So 11-7 actually does make a little bit of a sense for the LA Kings. And then there were years where they just didn't make the playoffs at all. They're they're a team that does this a lot. So that seems right. Minnesota 4-10. I didn't realize it was this bad, actually. I thought it would be more close to average, so that one surprised me a little bit. Moving on to my Montreal Canadiens, and yes, I know I'm wearing Toronto Maple Leafs. I switch up the jersey every time in case you're new, and if you are new, we'd love for you to hit the subscribe button down below. Montreal 11-13, a negative record. Doesn't really surprise me, but in the back of my mind, I kind of hope that they would have a positive record, and they don't. But at least they have a decent amount of series play. 24 series in the last 21 years. Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, Nashville 7-13, way worse. I think this is skewed because of that year that they snuck into the playoffs. They swept Chicago, and they went all the way to the finals. So that's 3 of their 7 wins in the last 21 years came from that 1 year. So if you just take out that 1 year, they've got 4 wins in the last 21 years in a series, which is not great. So they really need to improve that and get back onto the winning fashion. Detroit. Sorry, I did that last video too. I called New Jersey, Detroit. New Jersey 12-10, very average, probably expected. The Islanders 6-10. When you think about the Islanders now, they're a pretty good team. They've gone deep recently, but 6-10 is a pretty negative record. So it seems odd to see that. But the Islanders were really not that great of a team up until recently, so it does make sense. The Rangers very average, 10-11. I think this is okay. The Ottawa Senators 10-12. That also makes sense because in the mid to late 2000s, or I guess even early 2000s to late 2000s, they played a lot of playoff series against Toronto a bunch, and then I think they went to the finals that year against Anaheim, and then from 2010 to 2021, really, they really haven't done that much in the playoffs, so it kind of averages out a little bit. So 10-12, yeah. Philadelphia 11-14. This doesn't surprise me at all. They're kind of like this as well. One of those teams that just go up and down. You can never predict them. They always disappoint me, and then they always shock me when I think they're going to disappoint me. So 11-14 seems appropriate. Pittsburgh 22-12. Absolutely incredible. It's not the best record though, but it is amazing. 22-12. Like unreal. San Jose 17-16. They've made the playoffs a ton, and they are not the greatest team right now, but they have been in the playoffs so consistently over the past 21 years, or maybe not 21, but maybe we'll say 15 years minus. Oops, sorry if you heard that. My computer gave me a notification. Minus the last year or I guess last year. They've made it so consistently, so that seems about right as well. St. Louis 11-13. That seems incredibly accurate. One of those teams that have really good regular seasons. They get into the playoffs, hopes are high, and then maybe they win a series and maybe they lose the first round, and so average makes sense. The best record, Tampa Bay 22-9. 22-9. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. What an incredible record. Obviously the last 2 years added up 8 of those 22, so that's a big reason. And then Toronto 4-9. Toronto has only won or only played 13 series in the last 21 years. That is not good, and it's a negative record. Moving on to Vancouver 8-12. That seems accurate as well. But then jumping to Vegas 7-4 since 2000. Vegas came into the league in 2017. They've played 11 series. Toronto's played 13 since 2000. Vegas has almost played more series than the Toronto Maple Leafs since 2000. What? Okay, Washington 10-14. This one actually surprises me a little bit. I know that they're they have a reputation of kind of losing in the first round or losing in the second round. So I expected the losses, but I expected there to be more wins. They make the playoffs so consistently that I just figured there would be more series. And I guess I'm thinking, I'm not considering pre-2010 Washington Capitals. So I'm disappointed by that record, actually. I thought it would be at least average, or I assumed it would be better, to be honest. And then Winnipeg, the last one, 3-5. That doesn't surprise me too much. They haven't made the playoffs that much since they kind of came from Atlanta. So, yeah. Whoa. Jeez. That actually kind of hurt. That wraps it up, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Which statistic on here, which record on here surprises you? Which one doesn't? And which, like at the beginning I said, are there any numbers in here that you kind of correlate an experience to or a memory? Let me know down below in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. Hope you're having a great day. Please subscribe if you're new. Please like this video if you did like it. And I'll talk to you soon. Adios.